The storm rolled over the Montana mountains like a wounded beast, dragging thunder across the sky and painting the world in shades of blue and fear. Jed Hawthorne stood on the porch of his lonely cabin, his lantern flickering in the biting wind. Snow blew sideways, pine branches cracked under the weight of ice. And for the first time in 3 winters, Jed felt something strange. He felt he wasn't alone. A faint sound carried through the storm. Not the groan of trees, not the cry of wolves. Something smaller, softer, human. Jed stepped off the porch, his boots sinking deep into the fresh snow. He pulled his collar up against the wind. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice nearly swallowed by the gale. The sound came again, a weak whimper, closer this time. He squinted into the swirling white, and then he saw her. A small figure trudging through the snow, barely upright, clutching something to her chest, a girl, no older than 14, trembling, soaked, and pale as moonlit frost. She stumbled once, then again, and finally collapsed at the foot of a massive pine tree near the edge of his clearing. Jed didn't hesitate. He rushed forward, the snow sucking at his boots with each step, and lifted her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, a bundle of wet clothes and fear. "Easy now. You're safe," he murmured, though he wasn't sure she could even hear him through the storm's roar. Her lips were blue, her breath was shallow. A scrap of a canvas bag hung over her shoulder, torn and muddy. He carried her inside, kicking the heavy door shut against the howling wind. The sudden silence was deafening. He laid her gently on the rug near the hearth, the firelight dancing across her pale face. As he covered her with a thick wool blanket, she tried to speak, her voice so faint he had to lean close to hear her. "Please, don't let them find me." Jed froze. Them? Before he could ask more, her eyes fluttered closed, and she drifted into unconsciousness. He worked quickly, adding more wood to the fire until it blazed, boiling water, and wrapping a warm, wet cloth around her icy hands. It took nearly an hour of his careful attention before some color returned to her cheeks. The cabin grew warm, a fortress against the wild night. When she finally opened her eyes, they were filled with a deep, bone-deep fear, the kind a child should never have to carry. "You're all right," Jed said gently, his voice low and steady. "This cabin's the safest place in 30 miles. Storm or otherwise." She swallowed hard, her gaze darting toward the shuttered window. "You shouldn't have brought me in. The storm would have killed you," he replied, stating the obvious. "The storm's not the worst thing out there," she whispered, her voice trembling. Jed studied her carefully. He'd once been a man who knew danger well, years ago, before he left the world behind and chose the solitude of these mountains over people. But there was something in her voice, something that sent a cold shiver through him that had nothing to do with the temperature outside. "What's your name?" he asked, keeping his tone soft. "Lydia. Where are your folks?" Her eyes lowered to the floorboards. "Gone." Jed didn't press. The firelight flickered across her face, revealing fresh scratches on her cheek and bruises hidden beneath the dirt. Her eyes had seen far too much. He shifted gears. "You hungry?" She gave a small, hesitant nod. He ladled a rich, hot stew into a tin bowl and handed it to her. As she ate weakly, her hands still shaking, Jed took the moment to truly observe the stranger fate had dropped on his doorstep. She wasn't just lost. She was running. And whoever she was running from, they weren't just ordinary men. "You mentioned someone is after you," Jed said, breaking the silence. He kept his tone calm, non-threatening. "Who?" Lydia's hand tightened around the spoon, the metal clinking against the bowl. I can't say if you know. You'll be in danger too." Yet's jaw tightened. He'd lived a life avoiding danger, but he also knew you couldn't run from it forever. "Let me worrying about that." Her eyes lifted to his, scared, conflicted, and utterly desperate. Finally, she uttered one word, so quiet he almost missed it. "Outlaws." Jed exhaled slowly. It wasn't the answer he wanted, but he knew there was more. She wasn't finished. "They saw something I wasn't supposed to see," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Something terrible, something they'll kill to hide." "What did you see?" Jed asked, leaning forward slightly. Lydia looked toward the window, where the wind shrieked against the shutters as if trying to get in. "A murder. A man they shouldn't have killed." Jed leaned back in his chair, his stomach tightening into a knot. This was bad. Who was the man? She shook her head. "I don't know his name. But I heard the outlaws say he had proof. Proof that could ruin them all. Something he was taking to the law in the next town." Jed rubbed the rough stubble on his chin. This was getting deeper and darker by the second. Which gang are we talking about? She hesitated for a long moment, a battle raging in her eyes. Then she whispered the name, and the air in the cabin seemed to grow colder. The Marrow Creek Riders. Yet's blood ran cold. He knew that name. Everyone in 6 territories knew that name. A gang so ruthless they would burn entire towns just to hunt a single witness, leaving no survivors ever. And now, a witness to their crimes was sitting by his fire. Lydia hugged herself, shaking uncontrollably now. They killed him right in front of me. I was hiding behind a wagon. They didn't see me, not at first. But then one of them shouted. I just ran. They chased me to the river. Their horses were so fast. I thought I was done for. Her voice cracked, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. Then the storm hit. It was my only chance. I kept running, through the dark and the snow, until I saw the light from your cabin. Jed stared into the flames, his thoughts as heavy as winter stone. He didn't ask for this. He didn't want this trouble. He'd left the world of guns and blood behind years ago for a reason. But he knew trouble had a way of finding men like him, no matter how far they ran. And now it had found his doorstep. A sudden, sharp bang slammed against the window. Lydia gasped, dropping her spoon with a clatter. In one fluid motion, Jed grabbed the rifle leaning against the wall and moved silently to the side of the window. The wind howled and rattled the shutters, but that sound, that bang, it wasn't the wind, it was deliberate. Someone was out there, watching, waiting. Jed motioned for Lydia to go to the back room. Stay quiet. Don't come out unless I say. Her eyes were wide with terror, but she obeyed, scrambling from the rug and disappearing into the shadows of the small room. Jed slowly, carefully, lifted the wooden shutter just an inch enough to peer out into the swirling abyss. He scanned the dark tree line. Nothing moved. Nothing but the endless, blinding snow. Then, a shape shifted. A rider on horseback, sitting silent and still, facing the cabin like a specter. Yet's heart tightened in his chest. The Marrow Creek Riders had found her. As he watched, the rider leaned forward in the saddle, a silhouette against the storm. And Jed realized, with a chilling certainty, that he wasn't alone anymore. This storm was only the beginning. The next morning arrived quietly, with soft mountain light brushing across the small cabin. I stepped outside first, letting the cool air settle my thoughts. Behind me, the girl Clara stood in the doorway, wrapped in a blanket, watching the valley slowly wake. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't heavy, just thoughtful. You sleep all right? I asked gently. She nodded. I feel safe here. Her voice carried a softness that hadn't been there the day before. I gave a small, reassuring smile. Good. That's all that matters. I poured 2 cups of warm tea, handing one to her before sitting on the porch. Clara quietly joined me, her small hands wrapped around the cup for comfort. She kept her gaze on the peaceful valley, but I could sense the questions weighing on her. Eventually, I asked, you ready to tell me what brought you this far up the mountain? Clara took a deep breath. I wasn't trying to run from anything. I was trying to reach someone. I looked at her carefully. Someone up here, she nodded. My uncle. Mama used to tell me he lived beyond the ridge. She said he was kind, and that he'd help us if things ever got too hard. Clara paused, her eyes growing distant. But when I went to the crossroads cabin where he was supposed to be, it was empty. It looked like no one had stayed there in a long time. I felt a gentle ache in my chest. The girl had come all this way with nothing but hope guiding her. You traveled far, I said softly. Clara nodded. I thought, maybe he moved somewhere higher in the hills. I kept following the trail markers Mama once showed me. She looked down at her hands. But then I got tired. And lost, and scared. I rested my forearms on my knees, my voice warm. You did the bravest thing a person can do, Clara. You kept going. And you found help. Clara smiled faintly, but I could see the lingering worrying in her eyes. Inside the cabin, I warmed up some breakfast while Clara sat at the table, humming quietly something she hadn't done the day before. It made the room feel brighter. After we ate, I rolled out a large hand-drawn map of the valley. Let's see if we can figure out where your uncle might have gone, I said. Clara leaned over the map, tracing the trails with her small finger. He used to write letters to Mama, she said. In one of them, he talked about a quiet place near the lakeside. Does that help? I studied the map. Maybe, There's a cluster of cabins near Silver Lake. It's a long walk, but a calm one. Clara looked up. Do you think he could be there? It's possible, I replied, but we won't rush. First, we make sure you're rested and ready. Later that day, I took her outside to show her the animals I kept calm, harmless creatures that wandered peacefully around the property. Clara laughed softly as a gentle old mule nudged her hand, asking for attention. Her spirit was returning, little by little. As the sun began to dip behind the peaks, her thoughts returned to her uncle. You think he wanted to be found? Or maybe he left because he didn't want visitors anymore. I shook my head gently. Sometimes people step away because life gets heavy, not because they stop caring. Clara exhaled slowly. Mama always believed in him. I nodded. And that belief led you here. Clara looked around the warm cabin, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm glad it did. I felt something shift in my heart, something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. Connection, purpose, the quiet reminder that kindness still mattered. That night, as Clara drifted to sleep, I sat by the small table with the map again, tracing the possible paths towards Silver Lake. I wasn't sure what we would find there, but I knew this girl deserved answers, and I intended to help her find them. I folded the map and whispered to myself, tomorrow, we start the journey. But something else happened that I didn't expect. Clara, half asleep, murmured softly from her bed, thank you for not leaving me alone. I looked over, my voice warm and steady. You're not alone anymore, Clara. Not while I'm here. The cabin grew quiet again, but not with fear, with hope. And in the gentle stillness of the mountain night, our new path quietly began, setting the stage for what awaited at Silver Lake. What do you think we'll find there? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this journey, don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter. Thanks for watching. Morning arrived quietly over the mountains, bathing Elijah's cabin in a soft, golden light. Clara sat at the table, tying the small boots Elijah had cleaned for her the night before. She looked more rested, more alive, and far less afraid than when she first arrived. Elijah watched her with a calm smile. You ready for our little journey? Clara nodded eagerly. I feel ready. And maybe today we'll find him. Elijah folded a warm scarf around her neck and gently adjusted it. No matter what we find, you won't be facing it alone. Clara's eyes softened with gratitude. They stepped outside into the cool morning. Birds glided over the valley, and the path towards Silver Lake stretched ahead like a quiet invitation. Elijah locked the cabin, patted the mule waiting patiently, and together they set off on the gentle trail. Clara walked beside him, holding the map he had trimmed down to a small, easy-to-carry piece. Elijah, she asked as they walked, why do you live up here by yourself? Elijah took a thoughtful breath. Sometimes people come to the mountains to find space. Space to think, space to heal. I guess I needed both. Clara looked up at him. Did it help? Elijah smiled softly. It helped. But I think helping you has helped even more. Clara didn't say anything, but her smile told him she understood. As the trail curved toward the lake, the land began to open into wide meadows sprinkled with wildflowers. The lake shimmered in the distance, still and peaceful, like a mirror for the sky. There, Clara whispered. It looks calm. Like Mama described. Elijah nodded. Silver Lake always has a gentle feel. Folks who come here say it's a place where worries settle. As they approached the lakeside cabins, Clara slowed. Some cabins were old, some freshly repaired, and several had small signs posted outside, names carefully carved into wooden boards. Clara scanned each sign eagerly. Elijah stayed close, letting her lead. Then she stopped suddenly. Elijah, look. Her small hand pointed to a cabin with a simple wooden sign. L. Turner. Clara's breath caught. That's my mama's last name. Elijah felt a warm emotion rise in his chest. Then this might be the place. Clara stepped forward slowly, almost afraid to hope. The cabin was quiet, tidy, well cared for. A small garden sat beside it, freshly watered. Someone lived here. She took a deep breath and gently knocked on the door. No answer. She knocked again, softer. Still nothing. Elijah kneeled beside her. Maybe they're out tending to the garden, or fetching water. Clara's shoulders slumped. What if it's the right name, but the wrong person? Or what if he doesn't remember me? Elijah shook his head gently. He may not have seen you since you were little, but family memories, those don't fade easily. Clara looked out at the lake, letting his words settle. After a few quiet minutes, footsteps approached from the path near the water. Clara looked up. A man with gentle eyes and silver in his beard was carrying a basket of simple supplies, herbs, berries, and a few wooden tools. When he saw Clara and Elijah sitting outside his cabin, he slowed, curious but calm. "Can I help you folks?" he asked warmly. Clara stood, her voice trembling. "Are you Lauren Turner?" The man set down the basket slowly, his eyebrows raising. "I am." Clara swallowed hard. My mama was Anna Turner." Lauren froze not in fear, but in deep, stunned emotion. He stepped closer, studying her face with the tenderness that grew with every second. "Anna's daughter," he whispered. Clara nodded, and something in Lauren's expression softened instantly, like a long-locked door opening after years of silence. Without hesitation, he gently placed a hand over his heart. "I remember you," he said quietly. "You were just a tiny thing the last time I saw you." Clara's eyes filled, not with sadness but with relief. "I came to find you," she said. "Mama always said you were kind. She believed you'd help me if I ever needed it." Lauren blinked steadily, emotion swelling behind his gentle smile. "Your mother always had faith in people, and she was right too." He looked at Elijah. "And you must be the man who's been helping her." Elijah nodded modestly. "I just made sure she wasn't alone." Lauren stepped forward and, with deep gratitude, offered a hand. "You did more than that." "Thank you." Elijah shook it, humility in his eyes. Lauren invited them inside, where the small cabin was filled with simple comforts: handmade blankets, wooden shelves lined with letters, and a small framed sketch of Clara's mother as a young woman. Clara touched the frame gently, smiling. "She always told me you were someone she trusted." Lauren breathed in slowly. "I should have visited more, I should have written more." Life moved, and I let distance become too wide. He looked at Clara sincerely. "But I'm here now. And you came all this way to find me." Clara nodded, her voice soft. "I didn't want to lose the only family I had left." Lauren kneeled beside her, eyes warm. "You didn't lose me, you found me." Elijah watched them from the doorway, feeling something shift quietly in his own heart, something peaceful. This journey had been about more than guiding a lost girl. It had been about reminding himself of the goodness still alive in the world. Clara turned to him. "Elijah, can you stay a little longer?" He smiled gently. "I'll stay as long as you need me." Lauren added with a grateful nod, "You're welcome here anytime." The three of them stepped outside, the sun now reflecting off the calm surface of Silver Lake. A quiet breeze moved through the valley, peaceful and warm. Clara took Elijah's hand on one side and Lauren's on the other, smiling up at both of them. "For the first time in a long while," she said softly, "I don't feel lost anymore." Elijah looked out over the lake, a deep, comforting peace settling inside him. "And that," he whispered, "is the way it should be." The sun glowed gently behind the mountains, as if closing the story with a warm embrace, a reminder that sometimes hope leads us exactly where we're meant to be. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more.